figure, 1,865 houses. In 2024, we have invested on houses for completion of houses, $4.3 billion. So of that 12.5, 4.3 was for 2024, and that therefore saw the handing over in total of over 550 houses in 2024. That's 550 families who have been able to occupy a new area, their new home, their new space, and to have that level of comfort and not have to worry about the hassle, about landlords, in-laws issues. Well, in this job, you're confronted daily with all kinds of social issues, and you'll hear all kinds of reasons for requests. Similarly, just to give you an idea what's currently in progress, we have another 1,724 houses that are in progress. So those are at various stages, and by the middle of this year, all of those are expected to be completed. And I'm not even referring to new homes that are commencing. So for example, up to yesterday, we would have had another 20 young professional houses were allocated to be commenced. In the hinterland housing program, we started off with a $1 billion hinterland housing program targeting 400 houses. To date, we have expended over $750 million on this program, and that is being implemented in regions 1, 7, 8, and 9, and over 100 of those houses have been handed over in regions 1 and 9, and the work continues to complete the rest of the hinterland housing program. Quickly, if I can go on, because I want to allow you to ask as much questions as you can too. If I can move onward to policies. We're implementing a very robust housing program. Mandated, yes, but also a commitment by your government to ensure that we can raise the level of standard of living for our people and all our citizens, and therefore home ownership is one of those benchmarks. So as a result, we have embarked on a new national housing policy. And that housing policy, as I speak, we're committed, as I said, what's the overarching of that policy? To ensure that persons are able to have a safe, affordable, and adequate housing in various communities that are serviced by the relevant infrastructure. That is what we want to achieve. So as it is right now, we have a consultant who is developing the policy, and very shortly, sometime in a new week, that presentation will be made to us in-house with the ministers and team, by which time we will want to take to Cabinet a draft policy document for adaptation, and then obviously move onwards to a national level. Once we have that approval, to move onwards at a national level to be adopted from parliamentary level. So we have work that is ongoing in terms of a national housing policy, and what it involves is reviewing the existing policies and programs and processes that are currently implemented by CHPA. Stakeholders consultations have already been done, a fair level have been done, and that is ongoing. So what's the need assessment based on the stakeholders' feedback? That is being compiled, and likewise, as I said, move on to the terms of reference for a national housing policy. The second policy I want to tell you that we're working on under the housing program, coming back to community development and coming back to regularization and informal settlements, is the strategy for informal settlements, upgrading, and prevention. Let me repeat. A strategy for informal settlements, upgrading, and prevention. Where are we with this? The first phase of this is complete. That work is complete, and so sometime in this month, we are expected to present meaning from the minister's level, we will take to cabinet at that first phase the draft strategy, and then obviously for adaptation, feedback from governmental level, policy level, and it is our intention when we have a finalization from cabinet, we then move onwards obviously for a national adaptation. And so that strategy in the first phase involves, we have done a 100% analysis in terms of region 3, and that's the pilot region that we've started with, and obviously we'll move on to the other areas. And so the work is ongoing, and there's a consultant who is involved in this exercise. I mean, should you ask any questions, I'll be free to give any other information that you may want. I want to update you quickly on a program, a President Ali initiative, and that is, you would have heard about the steel and cement, the housing subsidy program. To date, the impact of this program, which aids and helps in terms of commencement for construction of houses for first-time homeowners, persons who would want that little initiative to help them to start or even to support them. And so to date, we have expended over $370 million on this program for a total of over 1,478 vouchers issued to the various regions. Obviously, Region 4 will be the highest, and so Region 4, $119 million overall, with 476 vouchers issued. In the year of 2024, we've invested on this program $129 million to issue 516 vouchers on this program. Here again is another Government of Guyana initiative that injects into directly an investment that aids in terms of home ownership. I now move on quickly to a bit on terms of our infrastructure and make a general comment. All of these on the soft side, I call this the soft side, meaning allocation, processing of titles, dealing with squatters, etc., cannot be complete without the physical aspect. And that is the work that is done by our project department in terms of the infrastructure development. And that project, the project department too, from the outset, may I say, except for a foreign funded project which may mandate as part of the conditionality, except for that, all our local projects, our Government of Guyana projects, are designed in-house by our project team, designed and implemented in-house by our project department of CHPA. What's the big point in all of that? In addition to what I've just said, it also means it saves millions of dollars, well, I would want to say by this stage, hundreds of millions of dollars in work that will normally have to go out to consultants. That is done in-house by our project team. They have done, for 2024, over 65.7 kilometers of roads upgrade to asphaltic concrete surfaces to a number of areas, and I can list them out for you. As well as, we've been able to initiate as well as construct more than 9.1 kilometers of 4-lane macro roads, and the evidence is there across regions 3 and 4. The investment there alone is over $23 million on highways. And similarly, for 2024, the project team was able to commence and in some areas complete developmental works in 19 schemes. These include Palmyra, Wales, Good Hope, Block F, Phase 1 and 2, Block E, Phase 1 and 2, LBI, Phase 3, Two Friends, Phase 1 and 2, Lusignan, Phase 1 and 2, Nonpareil, Phase 2, Enterprise, Phase 2, Yarra Cabra, Block A, Waterloo, Amelia's Ward, Squatting Area, Fitzhope, Amelia's Ward, Residential Area, Phase 4, Harrooni. In all, for 2024, so while our budget on housing and water went over $100 billion in summation, on investment on the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure side, is over $77 billion in 2024. So when one receives their lot, and when we say that the average cost to develop the infrastructure in front of a potential resident or a lot is $5 million, what do we mean? We mean the utilities that also have to go there, that has to pass. Because the electricity and the water in the new areas, the distribution system, that is done part of the project team's work through CHPA. And likewise, the drainage and irrigation, and as I said, the road network. $5 million on average to develop an average citizen, their lot, their infrastructure work in front of where they will reside. So when one asks, or there's an expectation to say that we charge a minimal fee for the lands, that's heavily subsidized. And no doubt, as a country, we become much more in terms of ability, we'll be further heavier subsidized. So the land cost that one pays is minimal to what is required to give them access to their new area. And for the very first time, I will want to add, for the very first time, we are close on par with allocations and the infrastructure work being done in the areas. Because you are members from the media and you know of the complaints where persons would have said in the past for East Bank, for example, would have waited 2 years. Would have been waiting a very long period. Now we're getting close to that level where the work is happening simultaneously as the area is going to be allocated. And for 2025 will be no different of our expectations based on allocations and the areas that they are currently designing for new areas for which we want to go out to allocate. The final figure I want to give you on the infrastructure, they have, for 2024, whether you talk about designed, procured, and executed, 819 projects. That was done by our community development department. Some other business, any other business? We still continue to have and receive a number of complaints of persons who fall prey to fraudulent activities. Last week, and by today or tomorrow, a reappearance of an ad will be in the papers. We have two aspects I want to highlight among many. One, that's the most popular one. You have a lot of fraud through where invitation to pay through MMG. An MMG service, a number is provided and you're asked to pay over. That's one. And secondly, in terms of commercial lands, you have a lot of persons who profess to be has land that is available for commercial purposes, that is available to be sold. So I want to warn our listeners to not be duped. There is only one way in which for commercial land, that's a process. And you have to put in your proposal, and then periodically we have review, you're contacted, and then you pay that at Central Housing and Planning Authority. And in fact, commercial lands are paid at the central office. for the residential lots at our regional offices or central offices, or only if we have what is called like the dream realized sanction activities. If you're paying anywhere else, then it can't be to the government of Guyana, and it can't be to Central Housing and Planning, and can't be Ministry of Housing and Water. We have had instances, we have had to forward many cases. Of course, for those cases to move to a level that we want for prosecution, the police will tell you, then we need statement. But when it gets to that aspect, you know, we don't get to the final stage very often for prosecution. And so persons have to be bold. If you're duped, you have to be bold to come out to say X, Y, Z, but they can only do this if you give a statement, because that is what is used in a court of law. And the very final thing I want to comment on is in terms of Silica City, we have, as you've seen presented at the Building Expo, we have completed the master plan. That is complete. One aspect you see ongoing currently, where we're building 110 houses, and that is ongoing. But the master plan has been completed for over 3,000 acres of land. And so the various aspects that is involved in putting together to ensure that we are able to expand, this is an ongoing exercise. But the work that is involved in terms of Silica City continues, and one certainly moving forward under this PBP tenure, you will see in a major physical way the enhancement on the Silica City. So I've paused here. I thank you very much for your patience, and certainly for members of the media, we cannot help but showing our appreciation for your work that you do in helping to highlight and to bring to fore many of the things we are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister Colin Crowell, for your presentation on the achievements and work of the Ministry and the Central Housing and Planning Authority in the housing sector, and also the additional information which you shared. We will move to the question and answer session in just a moment. All right, thank you. So for the question and answer session, I'd like to request that you initially limit yourself to one question and a follow-up, and we'll go around as time permits to engage you with other questions. Additionally, I'd request also that you raise your hand and let us know which agency you're representing and your name. Thank you. So we're open now for the first question. Please go ahead.
Swatlana Marshall from News Source. Good day. Minister, could you enlighten us a bit on what influences the cost of a house lot? And could you say if the house lot, for example, a medium, what you call it, a middle income house lot, does it carry the same price from, say, a 2020? Has the price increased?
So, sure. So, first of all, many variables are taken into consideration. So let's be practical here now. A land on the east bank of the Demerara will not be the same as one in Region 2 or Region 3 for a particular category. So as years go by, you have market value, but what we charge here is not the market value, but we use that as a guide. So you have market value that's taken into consideration. The region is taken into consideration. The location of the land is taken into consideration. The category of the land. So when designs are being done by the planning department, they categorize the type of lands in that area, that is taken into consideration. And so you asked about, for example, a middle income from now, previously from 2020 to now, may have a slight shift. But look, for example, low income. Low income lots, the average is still $300,000. Way back before that, it was about $92,000 many years ago. Obviously, you know, if you compare, it can't be the same. So a lot of variables that are taken into consideration, and obviously the land size, right, too. So if you're going to compare, so the point I want to make here, if you're going to compare a land in two different regions, a middle income, for example, let's use the same middle income you asked, will not be the same, or more likely will not be the same.
Is there a follow-up?
Yes, please. Minister, follow up to the whole land issue. You mentioned that 19 new housing areas were developed in 2024. And I know when people are applying for house lots, particularly in Region 4, there's a high preference for the East Bank or the East Coast corridor. Could you say if the ministry would have exhausted the areas in those two sections, or there are other areas on the development?
So you want just Region 4 or want a general, other areas too? In general, sure, no problem. So let's go, for example, for region, starting Region 2. So for example, Region 2, the two main areas we'd have developed would have been Charity and Ondiniming. As I speak, and I did allude to that there's a team that is working for us to be able to acquire additional lands. And that is to give you a hint that we'll be doing much more than what we have to achieve. And that is because we are aiming, with the exception of Region 4, we are aiming to bring on par, or at least bring very close to 2024 in this year for all the other regions, because it's dependent on availability of lands. So in the case of Region 2, we're still awaiting the finalization for the acquisition of additional lands, but we've saturated what we have there. Region 3, for example, west coast of Demerara, on the lands we have been given to us, we have reached a saturation point. That is why you see a consolidation at Wales. And more lands are being made available at Wales, and there are lands available at Wales as I speak. So that allowed us for Region 3 to be able to move our 2019 target to at least a minimum 2021, in some cases 2022. You come to Region 4, we have saturated the east bank of Demerara for allocation of lots. So we have not, on our activities, we have not been able to allocate for East Bank of Demerara for the last year and a half. All our allocations we have done is consolidated on the east coast of Demerara. And as I speak, additional lands on the east coast of Demerara are being made available. So moving forward, we will still have more allocations done on the east coast of Demerara. I haven't been able to get additional land for East Bank, and we have reached, and we have received a warning letter, by the way, from NDIA, because if you go inwards, which will be going east, you're actually reaching the Conservancy. That's how far we've reached for the East Bank. And that is why for East Bank, the infrastructure work took longer for those persons who were allocated in 2021, etc. So as I speak now, everyone for East Bank can access their land. Everyone on East Bank can now process for ownership of their land. But East Coast of Demerara is where the expansion growth is happening. Region 5, we at the last activity, we would have saturated the lands we have on the Region 5, saving except we have one area that we have available, and that's at Burma. But with MMA and our team, we have identified some additional lands, led by the Minister of Agriculture with MMA. They're currently reviewing those applications, and we are very sure we'll be getting that approval to proceed for our design, and that will form part of our allocations for Region 5. Region 6, there was a lull in Region 6 for a while, but you've seen we were able to push Region 6 last year, meaning 2024, because why? We've gotten additional lands, and we got those at Molson Creek. And so we have available at Molson Creek, so the work will continue to allocate in Molson Creek. But in terms of additional lands, we're optimistic. We're working with Gaisuco because most of the additional lands to acquire, Lands and Survey has already informed us that those lands are under the purview of Gaisuco. Now, they have their own decisions to make because their decisions involve, obviously, we're competing interests as a government. So it's not for housing, you have agriculture purposes too, and other uses. So they're going through that pace of identifying where lands that they can further release to us for housing development. And Region 7, the Bartica area where you saw us, we're building some houses and we did some allocation. There are some additional lands that are coming to our way for Bartica. And Region 8, well, we have land available to allocate. Region 9, we have saturated the Polk Bridge allocations. We've done a lot of work in Region 9. And as I speak, additional lands are being provided to us via Lands and Survey. Region 10, Amelia's Ward is saturated in terms of allocation. But we were able to allocate, 2 months ago or a month and a half ago, where it's in the new area of Wisma, and that's where, because we were able to get additional lands for that area. So at Wisma, as I speak, we have available lands, and in this month too, they'll be doing more allocations. So it varies as you go by region. And so the task of getting additional lands is always an ongoing one. And this is something that happens behind the scene. It takes a lot of time because, you know, as I said, there are competing interests and based on our demand too.
Go ahead.
Fanu Manakchan, the Ghana Times. Just to follow up on Svetlana's question, you mentioned acquiring more lands in 2025. Can you say where are those areas?
No, I will. At the appropriate time, we will speak towards. The team is the tripartite team that I just have alluded to, meaning CHPA with the agencies. We're currently working together. We're talking about the new lands to be acquired in 2025, right? Yes.
Okay. Minister, you mentioned complaints on the construction of the homes. I want to know, regarding the young professional houses, there are some delays in areas like LBI, Little Diamond, and so on. I want to know how is the ministry addressing these, particularly the contractors, and in holding them accountable, is blacklisting an option that you can consider or is considering?
Right. So, well, the LBI and the Diamond one, those are young professional houses you had alluded to, right? LBI, so far, we've only done young professional houses. In terms of engagement with contractors, we have done this at ministerial level. We have done this. In fact, we've gone through it. I think sometime late December would have brought in all the contractors and one-on-one engaging to address. And as I said, some of those complaints are legitimate. And so where we require termination, where can be terminated, we have been doing those. Where because of how far they have gone in terms for completion and the process in terms of how the money is released from the bank, etc., we have been working with the contractors. There's a variable that sometimes we don't speak often about. The cost for those houses that are being built, and I want to challenge, I've been throwing out this challenge. For example, the young professional houses, right now, the new ones, they are being built to $24 million. It therefore tells you, if you take that same design and you try building for yourself, it will pose a challenge to you. And so it therefore tells you that it's being done by the contractors, not for a great profit margin. And that's why sometimes we struggle with contractors, because from a government level, we want to keep the cost of the houses at minimum. And in order to achieve that, obviously, the profit margin will not be like someone who's working for a private individual or for a private sector. But we go through a tender process, and that's what they've committed. So they have to, having said what I just said, they have to commit to build to that. And so where we have had to terminate, yes, we have terminated. In fact, I've seen on my desk a number of termination letters over the last couple of weeks for some contractors, and they have one-on-one engaged the beneficiaries to ensure that we can have, they're aware and that the completion can be done by another contractor. The model for clarity though, for the houses for the young professional, that one, the beneficiaries are known in early because the payment plan, that person has to be doing, more than likely they'll be taking a loan, so it will be done through the bank and released in tranches. The houses that are done from the low, moderate, middle, the 3-bedroom, the 2-bedroom houses, those are done through Central Housing Fund. And then upon completion or handing over, the beneficiary, when they get their approval for the mortgage, or if they're paying cash, if it's a bank, the bank then pays for the house when they occupy. So the young professional model is slightly different from the other type of houses.
If I can just follow up, can you say how many contractors or contracts have been terminated?
On average. I'm being advised that at least about 15 contractors we have terminated.
Can you say from which areas?
Very LBI and the East Bank too. Because East Bank would not be Little Diamond alone, as you allude to. We have had, you had Prospect, Perseverance, and so forth, right?
No other questions.
Next question. Is there a next this way?
Could you provide us an update on the level of work, Loretta Coffee DPI? Could you provide us an update on the level of Good morning. Loretta Coffee DPI. Could you provide us an update on the level of works completed at these housing developments, Silica City, Palmyra, 5 Miles, and Yarra Cabra?
Yeah, let me go by region. The one before Region 6 is where you asked, is before Yarra Cabra. 5 Miles. Oh, 5 Miles, Bartica. Oh, that's 7. All right, let's go. So for Yarra Cabra, the infrastructure work, we have two aspects on the highway. So let me make this clear, which we didn't speak about. We have one where the implementation of the homestead program will be done. And so for that one, the first 25 houses to be built. So it's commencing, the preparatory work has started, and the access areas already been determined. In fact, the drilling of the well commences on Monday. A contract has already been awarded for that area. And so that one, based on the land, there is a commitment of 500 homestead houses. But based on that portion of land where we're starting, we'll be able to do about 250 within that portion. That area is called, that's the Haruni. The Yarra Cabra, sorry, that's the Yarra Cabra area. The Haruni area, the land has been cleared, the infrastructure work has been awarded, the contractors have been paid mobilization advance, and they are mobilizing to commence construction. We are going to be building in the first phase young professional houses there. That's at the Yarra Cabra area. And the Haruni, the land clearance has been completed, and the tendering for the infrastructure work is ongoing. Now, with the Haruni, it can be simultaneously because where the houses are going to be constructed, the prefab houses, obviously you just have to develop that land area while the road work is done properly. In terms of Palmyra, the infrastructure work is by and large, the current phase is by and large completed. But we have houses that have already started under construction. We have 3-bedroom houses that are currently under construction. And in for Bartica case, Bartica, we have houses there that are under construction. The infrastructure work, the first phase of infrastructure, except one lot, is by and large complete. Did I miss any of the area you asked? Okay, okay, sure. I'll give you that. If we can come to another question by time.
Can we have the next question, please? Yes, go ahead.
Minister, you said 10,791 house lots were allocated in 2024. Could you say what percentage of those agreements of sale have been signed for? And yeah.
Sure. So I'll give you a little more. Of the 40,000 that I have alluded to, about 30,000 we're in a position for persons to be able to see their land. And that is because, as I said, of the aggressive infrastructure. If I had answered this earlier in 2024, then we would have been struggling. But about 30,000 of that 40,000 can see their land. In terms of processing of ownership, on the 2024 allocations, few of those, maybe about 2,000 of those would have been processed for ownership. The process for ownership would have been those allocated prior. That is ongoing. So, for example, the one that I alluded to for Region 3, which we'll be doing in January, Metamere, Zurich, Stourbville, that area infrastructure, that area was allocated not last year, meaning 2023. And so the persons are now able to access. However, the east coast of Demerara lands, we're finalizing some of the ownership. And that's where most of the allocations were done, because you'll recognize, I said for Region 4, that's where we've done the allocations. So we're finalizing ownership, and we want to be able to, before the end of this quarter, to be able to be in a position to sign those off. But as they're completed, we're signing them.
Just two questions remain, that's it. You spoke about fraudulent activities, and we know in the past there is the issue of corruption, if I could say that. Persons within the ministry who probably do not have the authority to make arrangements for the allocations of lots have been collecting monies or soliciting money, in a sense bribe, to facilitate allocations. Could you say how many reports of such allegations were received for 2024, and if there were any, say, sanctions, suspensions, terminations, to what amount? And could you tell us about the the implementation and the effective utilization of the planning and development single window system? I know this has to do somewhat in collaboration with, say, for example, City Hall. Have you been able to collaborate effectively to ensure it's utilized?
So in terms of the earlier part of 2024, I'm aware of one staff who would have gone off as a result of an internal issue. But in terms of staff, because before, as I speak, I do not have before me, because you can't work on hearsay, but persons who have any tangible evidence, we've been encouraging them to go to the police. We also have an enforcement arm that is spearheaded by a former acting commissioner of police. And so we have some of our own ability in-house. But even if someone wants to go external, we've been telling persons to go report to the police. But we don't have before us, in terms of staffing, directly any staffing in terms of what you're asking about. But I do know, yes, one staff early in the part of 2024, and in 2023 would have had another person, a male, in 2023. In terms of the houses, I'll come back to all the other questions. In terms of the houses, let me just give you a little breakdown. Because as I said, I have it, but I wasn't sure on the availability of time. So low income. So for example, low income houses. We have built low income houses we have ongoing, as I speak, now startup in La Reconnaissance. And we have completed and ongoing in Prospect. In Region 6, we have completed at Williamsburg, Hampshire, Ordnance Fortlands, on East Bank. We have completed at Great Diamond, as well as we have under construction at the very Great Diamond. Similarly for Little Diamond, we have completed 50 houses there, and we have another 56 under construction. Similarly, over on the west coast of Demerara, within the Lenora, Anacathrina, Metamerzog, Edinburgh, Granville area, we have completed construction in all those areas, except now where the concentration will be within the Lenora area. So as I speak, you have about 371 houses, low-income houses, to be constructed. And then on the moderate income, in Cummings Lodge, right near here, Amelia's Ward, Linden. Cummings Lodge, by and large, we are near completion with Cummings Lodge and houses. They're about maybe under a dozen, I would say, where for correction maybe of defects, but by and large, that's it for Cummings Lodge houses. So that's over 400 plus houses constructed, built there. Amelia's Ward, Linden, as I mentioned, under middle income, Cummings Lodge 2, Little Diamond, Granville, Bartica, Palmyra, Success. Success, we have 100 houses that are under construction, 3-bedroom houses. And the young professional ones, we have just commenced for the first time at Lenora for young professional Region 3. And we have 20 under construction. Silica City, 110 as I alluded to, Great Diamond, LBI, Little Diamond, Prospect, Providence. In terms of the regional program too, Bartica for Region 7. Then we also have the Region 9 program, the initiative that sees for the construction of, to the tune of $3 million. The beneficiary provides $1 million, through the government of Guyana, $2 million. And that program is ongoing for Region 9. And so we have been handing over as they are completed. And the first 100 houses, we're nearing for the completion of the first 100 houses under that program. It continues because the program is geared whereby the community is involved. The blocks are made right in Region 9, that comes from various villages. The wood is sourced from Region 9, that comes from the various villages. The materials is even for those we have to buy, we buy them locally. In the case of Bartica, as you're asking, Bartica, I'll have to give you a follow-up on the total where we are at in terms of the completion of those houses. But there are various phases. No, the percentage, 1%. No. I'm being advised 56% complete, or just over 50%. And the contractors involved there are all from Bartica. What we're trying to do when we're building in the regions is to ensure that it's support of the locals, and these are all from the respective regions. And similarly for Region 6, it's all Region 6 contractors. In terms of the single window, you would recall that right here at the conference center, this program was launched, and it was launched under His Excellency the President. And under the single window program, this program is one that I would say is transformational. Why? It takes away, obviously, the archaic system of one going through the hassle in terms of local authorities, You can be anywhere and filing that. In fact, I know somebody overseas who has been following up over the last 2 weeks on their approval. But you can be anywhere in the world and you can have your approval be done. Now, where are we with the single window? To date, we have registered, we have over 346 active applicants who have registered on the single window system. Of this 346, about 132 of them have not made their payment. So obviously the application process could not move. Now, let me remind you on this. What the single windows does, the electronic single window does, is to have one location through the central housing that you file your application, you pay your processing fees there, and that fees is not just going to central housing, that is going the respective fees that are charged by the local authorities and the respective agencies, you're paying that at CHPA, and the CHPA reimburses that. So that's not going to the coffers of CHPA. But you will not have to go to various agencies to pay, to process. So whether you involve the fire board, whether you involve the health authority, whether you involve EPA, it's just one location. Another bit of statistic I will want to give you. To date, in terms of approval, at the board level, through the electronic single window, we have approved over 13 applications through the electronic single window, meaning from here. You also have some that have been filed at the local authority in terms for the residential lots. But here at the electronic single window unit at the ministry. So to date, what is the overall we've received? In 2024, we received 872, and we processed 892. You may ask, how come we processed more than we received? Because you realize you'll have flow over from 2023. That is what we accomplished in 2024. Of that, 14 relates directly to major investments in the oil and gas sector. So the single window is fully operational, and approvals will only be done through this process. We did have initial hiccups with and still do, hiccups with the local authorities, and more particularly the Georgetown municipality. Behind the scenes, we have had, through the planning department, they have had a number of engagement, and so now they have identified their rep, and I think it's moving now, or should be moving, but we did not have the support of the municipality. In fact, when persons were turning up and having to have their plans, etc., they were being sent to CHPA. But the local authorities still have their responsibility of ensuring the plans are approved. And similarly, we will be moving on in this year to ensure that agencies that has a time-bound responsibility, and that's one of the tenets of the single window we are careful to regulate. So is to have timely response by the agencies. Because many times when persons complain that I'm waiting months from CHPA, yes, you're waiting from CHPA, that's factual. But what is also factual is that CHPA's approval has to have other agencies, based on the application, the involvement of other agencies.
Nicasia Logan, NCN News. Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Minister, there are a number of lands that are overgrown by thick vegetation for reasons unknown, a hazard. How does the ministry plan to address this going forward?
I'm thinking you're referring to those that have been allocated.
Yes.
All right. We have a debt collection department, and we do have a department that sends out letters for persons to encourage for construction, etc. And that as far as where we be going. In fact, many of the local authorities themselves have been complaining because obviously my neighbor, the bush is overgrown, and for other obvious reasons, security risk, etc. But we've been writing such agencies. The local authorities themselves, they have an arm of the law that they can apply, whereby they can have such debushed or cleared, and then they put that towards the taxes. All right, that's an arm or tool that they can use. But that's the approach we have been taking, because of many of these land or two have the persons already have ownership, right? Their title.
So, given the fact that you're writing continuous letter, is there anything else you can do to have them move faster for security and safety?
At this point, it's a challenging one, because, as I said, they have ownership for their land. So, and this government, and we have not repossessed any land, and we don't intend to do that. We are about giving.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
sure, no, it's okay.
Go ahead.
Minister, in 2024, we heard allegations from the opposition that the area in Maka Arcadia, where those residents were removed to facilitate the road expansion project, that now that the road has been completed, it indicates that the residents were not directly in the path of the road, and second allegation is that sections of those of that particular area has now been given, in a sense, or allocated for commercial purposes. Could you respond to those two allegations?
So, sure, I'm happy. The portion of area that we refer to lies between, exactly between where if you want to say the Mocha Access Road or the Providence Road. From there, going will be southwards. Somewhere, and it ran maybe somewhere into the vicinity of where I mentioned about in line of where persons are in the mock area that are squatting. So that alignment, there's an alignment that was done. So that alignment, obviously, where the road had to run, because it's a continuous process. It started all the way from, obviously, Mandela. And so it fell in the way of the alignment. If you drive there now and you go there now, contrary to what has been said, we have done nothing in terms of where that road, at the side of where that road lie. Now, when you're doing 4-lane or even public roadways, there also has to have a cushion in terms of reserve. Case in point, even look at the expansion that we're doing that is being done through our government in terms of the electricity sector. Go at the side of the Schoonard Crane Road, you'll see infrastructure work being done for the high-span cable. Go to our Cummings Lot scheme, you will see work being done for the high-span cable. Go right at the very 4-lane at Mandela, the roundabout there, maybe up to Houston. You will see at the side there infrastructure work done for high-span cable. So there has to have a reserve. So where those persons, when I'm saying this repeatedly, and I want you to quote me, where those persons were removed, and I think the right name, Charles, was Caneville, right? That was Caneville? Those persons, Caneview. Where those persons were removed, Caneview, the side of the road, the government of Guyana has done nothing with the portion that has to remain as the reserve. Because you will have had a road running in people's back houses, backyard, or whatever else. And you tell me, in whose interest is it to have a highway running through a yard? And I also want to remind all those persons were engaged in a timely manner, including by myself. Despite the hostility, I went there. All those persons were engaged. There was a process that involved. So there were 7 that remained and were encouraged to remain, including by opposition MPs. They were encouraged to remain. The others they were all compensated. They were relocated to land in the vicinity in farm and Horstelling, the compensation, they used that to help to build a proper house because they didn't own this land. This is not like titled land that we had to remove. These are persons who are occupying a portion of land that they did not have in any shape or form any ownership. So obviously, you're moving from an environment where you don't have the infrastructure, you don't have the proper utilities service to be provided to be able to give you in a legal way. You move to an environment where the title for you, given a title for your new area that you're going, so you got the ownership. We process that free of cost. You were compensated, and many of them who run, what we never said, and I'm saying it today, many of them who their money ran out, despite the budget would have showed that they could have built their house, we helped them to complete their homes. But there were 7 that were encouraged to remain, and that is what is the fact. Sure.
Go ahead.
Don't forget you got water. You have water too, right? I have a lot of wonderful stories in water because you in the media, you know, any water look a certain way, you make certain noise, right?
I
So
do have a question
good.
for Minister. Minister, how is government, or more specifically your ministry, dealing with cases whereby residents of these private gated communities are suffering because the
So
developers...
you got I'm missing. Go back. I'm not hearing clear.
I'm asking about your treatment of these private gated communities where the residents are sort of suffering because the developers don't offer services such as D&I, garbage collection, and so on. And these are residents who are paying rates and taxes, but the NDC also isn't assisting.
Yeah, so those people, those persons in there that are, and there are a few in East Bank,
Yes,
those gated
Republic
communities.
Gardens and
Right,
Richmond
they don't,
Hill.
it's not under us, they would have had no approval for the establishment of their scheme. But in terms of their day-to-day management, etc., is not under our purview. But they would have signed, the beneficiary or the residents there would have signed an agreement with their providers. And surely when you're signing any agreement, you ought to ensure that there's recourse should somebody not deliver, or a means of dealing with challenges as they arise. Our role where we come in, though, from the planning department, is there are certain buildings and so forth that has to be constructed, whether it's in the schemes or not, they have to get the permission from us. But in terms of their little challenge of management, you know, there's a different matter. They have to deal with that internally.
So there is nothing on your end that can be done to assist those residents?
And don't forget, in any civil matter, there's a legal avenue. And obviously, anyone can challenge that in a court of what if what is committed or what is signed is not being provided, then everybody has a legal recourse.
Okay.
Even if us as housing, you know, you feel that we're not doing something as we should.
For Minister Rodriguez, you mentioned disruptions to GWI infrastructure from roadworks and stuff. What systems are in place for better coordination between GWI contractors and maybe other ministries who are doing those works to prevent these disruptions? And also from the other end, when GWI is doing work, not to disrupt or destroy current infrastructures.
So thank you for your question. Now we have a task force or a committee that meets from GWI and CHPA and the Ministry of Public Works. You would appreciate that this entire country is a construction site. And so a lot of the disruptions in the network are accidental, or you have contractors who did not seek advice or consult with GWI to find out exactly where the pipe network is, and some are just reckless and therefore causes a lot of leaks, especially on the east bank of Demerara. And so when the network is disrupted, some of them even attempt to hide it. And it's when we get the complaints from the communities that they're out of water, then we have to go investigating where the leak is. So this causes some disruption. But there is collaboration among these agencies, Ministry of Public Works, for those projects that are being executed under that ministry. Similarly with CHPA and GWI, and we have a collaborative effort to ensure that if there's a disruption to the pipe network, that it is replaced or repaired expeditiously. And similarly, if GWI has to break a road or dig up any part of an existing road, we have collaboration with the Ministry of Public Works to have that reinstated as quickly as possible. So there is a coordinating committee that deals with that. We can, as part of our contracts on the GWI, we reinstate up to crusher run. It's part of the contract to ensure that whatever holes is created in the road, that it is reinstated, it's compacted, and crusher run is placed. And the Ministry of Public Works comes to do the final layer of asphalt when that is completed.
If I can just follow up, you mentioned some contractors even trying to hide when they damage the infrastructure. Is there sanctions for those persons, or have you sanctioned anyone?
Well, they have to fix it. And you know, we don't go through any long bureaucratic process to get these things repaired. When I say hide it, I mean they wouldn't report it. So they may or may not realize that they have damaged the network and move on with their work, and subsequently we discover that there is a leak there or there was a disruption. We don't make the public wait for that to be fixed. We make an intervention through GWI to fix it, and if anything has to be, if there are a lot of costs attached to that, we will, the contractor has to fix that.
Minister Rodriguez, in addition to my colleague's question, have you seen greater collaboration with utility companies to work together when it comes to doing the digging of the road? And I allude to the Lamaha road, railway embankment. When they were doing that, there were issues with GPL and GWI, and we had to work. You guys had to work together. Are you seeing greater collaboration with this and going forward, 2025?
Oh yes, definitely. So there have been mistakes in the past, and we've learned from that as the agencies have been working closer and closer together now. There have been a lot of lessons learned over the past 4 years because of the high intensity of the construction projects. Only maybe 2 or 3 months ago, at a ministerial level, we met, myself, Minister Kroll, Minister Indar. We met at the Ministry of Housing boardroom along with all of our technical people, reminding them of the importance to work together. All of our engineers were there, the CEO for GWI, all of the heads for GPL. So we all met. It's an ongoing effort to ensure that all of these agencies work seamlessly together to cause as least inconvenience as possible to the public. We know that the construction has been uncomfortable sometimes in the city, but that is a small price to pay for the massive transformation and development that is visible across our country. Nevertheless, we continue to work together to make Guyanese as comfortable as possible while they endure this construction that is taking place.
Any other questions?
All right, so if no other thing, then we can start winding down. Let me thank you very much for coming out here today. It's always a pleasure. We're happy to let the nation know what we're doing. And as you've listened from both presentations, you realize we have a plan, we have a program, so it therefore means that we're doing things in a structured way. And we're also not unmindful of criticisms or feedback, because that is what helps in terms of improvement, and that also helps in productivity. And so on my own behalf, I want to really thank our staff who have stayed the course. They've felt the brunt of the population sometimes, an impatient person who's walking through that gate or through the door. But I want to thank the staff who have worked beyond both GWI and for Central Housing. I want to close quickly though because I don't think it might have came over with clarity. The aspect on the national housing policy, where we at in summary is that the TOR, the terms of reference for the consultancy who will be working on this strategy. So we're finalizing that, and that draft has already been prepared. So within another week, we will have that approval and obviously move onwards to the full work on the policy itself. All right? So thank you very much, and it's a pleasure, and have a blessed 2025 year ahead. I don't know if Minister Rodriguez wants to close with anything.
Yeah, just to reiterate, we want to thank the media for coming today. Thank you for your support over the last 4 years. We look forward to your continued support as we go forward. And it is a duty on all of us to educate and update the public on the transformation of our country and the trajectory and vision for this country and our people as we go forward into the future. This People's Progressive Party civic government does not govern for today. We govern for the future, and that is why you hear us talking about plans for beyond 2025. We talk about 2030, because we have to do long-term sustainable planning for the development of our country and the improvement in the quality of life for our people. And you see that already happening in our sector as we make plans for 2025 and beyond to 2030. So we look forward to your continued support, and stay tuned, all of Guyana, for the continued progress that you will see under the Ministry of Housing and Water. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This brings the presentation, the end of year presentation, to the close. Thank you all very much, and as was previously indicated, Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you.